right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a somewhat different episode of Real Conspiracies. I'm PJ Williams. I've been gone for like 8 months, and we'll get into that in a minute, but I'm joined today by my good friend and author, Jared Michaud. Jared, how you doing, man?
I'm just super happy to be here, PJ. It's totally fun to do this stuff with you, man. And
Yeah.
all the stuff that we'll get into. It's totally cool.
All the stuff. Yeah, we've been getting to work together in a lot of cool ways, and for people who might remember, I had Jared on to do the first Matrix, and maybe we'll get into the rest of the trilogy at some point. But that was a very fun episode. So, I don't even know where to begin. Like I said, this is a very different episode. I told people on Twitter about 2 weeks ago, which is funny. We were going to do this episode 2 weeks ago, which is why I tweeted that out. I was like, I have something. Just wait a little longer. But I told people, I'm like, I know I've been getting a lot of messages, and I appreciate your guys' messages, or appreciate everybody who's reached out to me and asked me where I've been. Been kind of away from social media, podcasting, everything for about 8 months. But I haven't been completely sitting on my hands. I've been working on something. I just want to really quickly check that we are live on Rumble real quick.
We are. I just checked.
Okay, we are. Good,
it's working.
Good. I just had to refresh it, and I just wanted to make sure.
I did too.
Welcome in, everybody, on Rumble and YouTube, and I'll put this up on probably on Dark Ocean and all the podcast stuff later for people who are curious what's going on. But yeah, I've been silent for a while. We can get into some of the reasons why, but in that meantime, I actually had an idea last year. It was March of last year. And I don't like to call it a dream exactly, because it was like I was half awake and half asleep, and this whole idea came to my head of a book, and I just put it on the back burner. I was doing too much. I didn't have time for it. And turned out that I've been, basically living on the road for a while now, since December. And in that time, I was like, well, I might as well start writing a book. So I had this idea.
A lot of times when the Holy Spirit is talking to you, it comes in ways like that. It's like you get these things that are kind of fully formed, and he puts them into your brain, and it's like you partner with him in doing these things. And so it's totally awesome. It really is. So not to say this is inspired by God or something, but it's like he likes to help us create things. He likes to help us do these things, and it's totally fun.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think back in March of this year, I started writing in it. I bought a notebook at a truck stop, and I started scribbling in it. And I was like, I'll go home and I'll write it when I'm home. And then I took my scribbled paper, and I'd come home on the weekends, and I would try to type, and I was like, this is too much. So I just got Word doc on my phone, and I wrote in just under 3 months, I wrote 105,000 word rough draft of a book. Completely with my thumb on my phone.
Just to give people an idea of what 105,000 words looks like, you're looking at something that is about this thick. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what you're looking at in 105,000 words. Just to give you some idea. In 3 months, that's what he did.
Yeah. So yeah, I did that. And when I got towards the end of it, Jared reached out to me. And this was the funny thing. I was getting towards the end, and I was praying to God at a truck stop. And I said, I'm learning a new process, and I really need an editor, and I need someone to partner with me on this. No more than 5 minutes later, Jared calls me, and he's like, hey, because we talked about this a little bit. You were one of the few people I told that I was writing this book. And you're like, hey, maybe you don't want this, but I just want to offer, the ability to edit your book and help you to make it what you want it to be. And it's been just little things like that have happened along the way that have just made this whole process a lot of fun and very exciting. We'll get to the book. We're going to read part of it. We're going to talk about some stuff Jared and I are working on. I know I'm jumping all over the place, but
that's all right. That's all right. Well, some of it's just excitement, right? Like,
yeah.
Just so everybody's clear on this, I was told one time that publishing is an industry that runs on excitement.
Yeah.
So what you do, it's because this is interesting and this is cool and this is fun. And there's a lot of work that goes into it too, but when you get to share it with people, you've been doing so much work behind the scenes for so long that it all just kind of piles up, and you want to just talk about everything.
Right. Yeah. So let's go back to square one. Cause I told people, hey, I've been gone for a while. I didn't say a whole lot. I think the only people I really updated was the locals community. I said, hey, I'm going on hiatus for a while. But yeah, basically, long story short, there's certain stuff I just don't care to get into, but you guys have been with me for, some of you people I'm seeing in the chat right now, people are going to listen to this later. You guys have been with me for years. some of you probably remember back in 2019 when I started podcasting, and I did a little show called Totally Plausible Conspiracy Theories. I've done some other projects. I did Conspiracy Pilled for a couple of years, and then we started Real Conspiracies, where we're streaming this right now, and Dark Ocean. And last year was a very interesting year for me in a lot of ways. Ended up losing my job. I ended up quitting my job. I didn't get fired, actually.
So
they asked me to do something that I was against. You want to?
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
So what I was going to say is, just so people are clear, what they were asking for was something that was intrusive into your home, into your life, for a monitoring thing that was not okay, and you quit because of that, and that's justified. You should have.
Yes. Well, quite literally, I went to work one day and I realized that they told me I had sleep apnea, and I wasn't sure they were right because they did a test based off of an app on my phone. It was really sketchy, and I was like, all right, whatever. I don't know why they want me to do this test, but I'll do it. They're like, you have sleep apnea. Work will pay for a CPAP machine. And I was like, all right. So I got a CPAP machine. I started going back to work. And one day I walk into work, and my boss is asking me, he's showing me on his computer, like, oh, I know when you're in bed, and I know when you're sleeping, and we can monitor your house. And I had no idea that was even a thing. And I'm like, I do not feel comfortable with you having remote access to my bedroom, whether it's just monitoring my sleep patterns or not. I'm not cool with it. And he was like, well, if you're not cool with it, you're not going to work here. And I said, oh, I guess I don't work here. So I left that job.
Yeah.
And yeah, things were crazy. I felt called to leave Conspiracy Pilled for reasons we don't have to get into. I don't care to do the he said, she said thing, but it was what I needed to do.
Let's put it this way. There is no desire in either of us ever to drag people we love's names through the mud, or to talk about crap that really isn't public business in public. It just isn't a good thing to do to people we care about. And so we don't need to do that. Let's leave it in the past and move forward.
Right, fair? Yeah, and that's exactly, and that's kind of been my whole thing this time. And I know some people wanted me to get deeper into it. There's really not a lot to get into, and there's no reason to get into it. I left. I felt like I needed to. You guys supported me in starting Dark Ocean, continuing Real Conspiracies. At this time, I kid you not, guys, I was working on a farm, butchering turkeys. I was doing DoorDash. I was going to the blood bank to give plasma every time that I could. And I was podcasting 2 full podcasts and creating all the content. And that work schedule, it's not that it just burnt me out. It's that I was burnt out and unable to provide for my family. So through a lot of prayer, I decided I need to go back on the road, find a job that wasn't going to require this intrusive monitoring thing. And I ended up getting a job that I never wanted, which was over the road. I've been a truck driver for 10 years. I've never been over the road till this year. And what over the road means is that you live and sleep in a truck cab. So your truck has 2 seats in the front, a curtain, and then it's got like bunk beds and a refrigerator and all that stuff in the back. And my wife hates this joke, so if she's watching, she'll be mad at me for this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I've been living in my truck so much for the last 8 months that I jokingly call my home that I own, that I purchased with my wife, I call it my vacation home. I'm not here very much. But it has been interesting. God has really been working on my life, on my heart, and in that time, like I said, I was able to write this book. So I wanted to come to you guys today, give you an update on where I've been. That's where I've been. And what I'm up to in the future. And what I'm up to in the future is that I wrote a book called Patch Notes Apocalypse. It's part of a trilogy. We're going to get into it. I'm going to read a snippet from it. And I've been praying a lot about podcasting and if I'm supposed to return and what that looks like, because I know that's everybody else's other big question. So before we get into the book, I'm just going to answer that, and then we'll get into some other stuff. So I'm not home very much. It's very hard for me to do podcasting, but I've done so much research for this book. It is a fiction book, but I've done so much research for certain aspects of it that I've been putting together some episodes that I really want to take on the road. I really want to go on to some of my favorite podcasters' shows, and I've been talking to some of them, so I'm going to be doing that. I do want to start doing Real Conspiracies once in a while. I'm not going to put out a schedule. I'm not going to plan to have it be every other week or anything like that. I do have an episode scheduled soon. I want to make that return, but my family comes first. They see me very little right now, so just pray for us. Try support us if you can in the stuff that we create. But that's where I'm at right now. God's given me the time to write, and I'm going to write. And if I can podcast when I can, I plan on it. You guys probably can tell that right now it doesn't look like it used to. I've got a much cheaper microphone. I tore my podcast studio apart after all this. We were hurting in bad ways because I really tried to push forward with the podcasting stuff as far as I could go before I called it quits, and I ended up having to sell everything. I sold everything. I tore my podcast studio apart. Through Jared's prodding and another friend of mine, Kirsten, who's going to come on the show next week. They convinced me to set my podcast studio back up and to buy this microphone and this camera. So it's a little cheaper. The quality's a little less. But if you guys are okay with a little bit less production quality, I'm going to try to get some of these episodes out to you when I can. So that's the update on my life. Jared's got some
interrupt there.
Yeah, go ahead.
Interrupt there. So guys, let's put a little bit of a different spin on this. Every time he puts out a podcast episode, he's taking time away from his family to do that, and he only gets like a couple of days a week or a day a week with them. So it's actually incredibly important that he takes his time with his family when he can. So no pressure, PJ. You do what you can, man. We all, and I have been part of his audience from before I became his friend, and I appreciate your podcasting as much as anything. And so I just want you to know, we all, and I'll speak for your audience, we all want you to be a healthy, happy human being with a good family life. Do what you need to do, dude.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And like I said, if I do stuff in the future, it's going to be episodes that I can prepare for on the road, come home, record for an hour. Because some weekends, this is an exception because I told work that me and Jared were doing this today and I had to be home last night. But like last 2 weekends, let's put it into perspective. I got home Saturday evening and went back to work Sunday evening. And there have been a couple of times where I've been on the road for 2 weeks, 3 weeks at a time. So I need those days with my family as much as I possibly can. So, but yeah, beside that, let's talk about this book and let's talk about some of the stuff we've been working on. But
so just so everybody's clear on this, PJ wrote a book. It's a full-length novel. It's called Patch Notes Apocalypse, and we don't have a publication date yet, but he is working on the cover. He has got, we've edited a little snippet. This is really cool stuff. So what kind of book is this? Tell people.
Yeah, so this is this is what's weird. I want to call it a lit RPG, but people will think sword and sorcery, fantasy, Dungeons and Dragons. It's not that at all, but it is a lit RPG, which means it is a genre that has characters who have stats and levels and kind of zany stuff like that, like you'd see in a video game. And actually, I was going to share with you guys the cover of it, but before I do that, let me just read a little snippet that someone wrote kind of the book, and I kind of liked what they wrote. So this is someone who read it and wrote a little summary for me, and it says, when truck driver Eli Brenner wakes up trapped in a hyper-realistic, post-apocalyptic video game, he must fight for survival alongside his conspiracy theorist best friend Josh. Facing zombies, cryptids, and hostile players, Eli grapples with the terrifying possibility that in this game, death isn't just a reset, it's the end. To find a way home, he must confront a reality more twisted than any virtual world. And to give you guys a sample of what the cover is going to look like, and this is still under construction, like everything else is with this, but I still wanted to share it with you guys. This is the working cover for Patch Notes Apocalypse. It's Redacted Online, Book 1. Redacted Online is the name of the video game that Josh and Eli get trapped inside of, and there's a reason for the naming of the game. There's a reason for a lot of this stuff, and I don't want to spoil any of the things. Sometimes, this is funny, sometimes my wife, who's been reading these along with me, I'll tell her an idea I have for the next section or the next book, and my wife will legitimately get mad at me if I bounce ideas off her. She's
spoilers.
Like, I'm enjoying it so much. Like, spoilers, don't tell me. So I did that this morning. I kind of spoiled something that I was writing. I think I'm on chapter 5 of book 2 right now in the rough draft.
That's cool
process. But
so
I'm not going to spoil it too much for you guys.
And just so everybody's clear, I haven't actually read this yet. So what I try to do as an editor is I don't want to read it 5 times until I'm actually ready to edit it. So we've talked about a few general things. I understand some general things about it, but I'm looking forward to reading it right now, and I get to do that pretty soon. Like, I get to start my editing pretty soon, which is totally cool. So I'm looking forward to reading it too, PJ. This is totally fun.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah. So, well, since you haven't read it, like, what questions would you want to ask me about it? Because I do want to read a snippet, but I feel like I need to set up that snippet a little bit before we get into it.
Well, let's see. So the way I describe lit RPG is if you wrote a book about the main character in a video game, but because it's a book, you can do more with the video game than you could if it was a real video game. It's harder to make. It's like it's an open world that you can develop however you want instead of having to have all of the video game preset rules. You can kind of take it in other cool directions as you're ready to, and it can get bigger and bigger. That's kind of what lit RPG looks like. As for questions, I don't know exactly. I mean, you and I have read some of the same lit RPGs, so I kind of know what the genre looks like.
Right.
But as far as the story goes, I guess the first question is, you say it's about Josh and Eli. What inspired those characters? Because to me, books are about characters a lot.
Yeah. So this is a funny one because Josh and Eli, I've tried to talk to my wife about where the inspiration came from them. And in some ways, what I tried to do was to take the two aspects of myself that some people see and some people don't see, and I kind of split it into two different people. But I also based Josh off of a very good friend of mine in high school and a couple other friends that I've had throughout my life. So so to put it in perspective, the book kind of opens in this bar, and it takes place in a little town called Lind, Washington. And it's kind of I describe it as a buddy comedy road trip lit RPG. It's more militaristic. It's not sword and sorcery. It's more like Escape from Tarkov would be a good game that helped inspire some of the ideas. But it is about them traveling across America and running into myths and cryptids and all this stuff that you would read about. So what's fun to me about this book is that instead of it just being like kobolds and gremlins and ogres and orcs and all that stuff that you get in sword and sorcery fantasy, this is like one character I have is called the Tata Clea, which is this owl witch from Native American folklore. And there's a character. I've been tempted to read this, even though we haven't edited this part yet, because it's my favorite description I have of a character. There's a cryptid in Washington State called the Gumbaroo, and it's literally a hippo bear thing that when it dies, it bursts into flames. And this is the old folklore of how forest fires would start. And there's just stuff like that. There's going to be Wendigos and Mothman and all the cool like cryptid type stuff they're going to run into as they cross the country. But Josh and Eli start off in this bar, and I love this bar scene to me because it's a real. I had to change the name of the bar, obviously, but because I'm doing a road trip comedy, I didn't change names of towns. I'm trying to write about places I've been, and as a truck driver and as just someone who's lived all over the place and gone all over the place, it's been fun to kind of write these places. Lind is a very tiny town. I actually did live there. The way it's described in the book, my brother who lived there with me, he read it and he's like, "Yeah, this is what it's like in Lind," and it's a very very tiny town in the middle of nowhere.
I've always lived in very tiny towns in the middle of nowhere. For the record, that's like my life. That's where yeah.
What's so funny about this though is like I thought because I haven't lived there in 13 years.
Sure.
I thought that I'd been describing it too small. And I was like, well, I've always said to people, it's got about 500 people. I'm like, it's probably bigger than that. So I went on the Google census or whatever, and the 2023 census data said there was 502 people in the 2023 census, and I lived there in like 2012. So I'm like, oh, it was that small when I lived there.
So for reference, I grew up 15 miles from a town of 250 people, and I currently live in a town of about 1,000 people. So right,
yeah. So they're in this bar, and Josh, he's this conspiracy theorist. He loves listening to Coast to Coast AM and all of the talk shows. And what's fun about exploring this, again, for the people who've been following me for a while and like all my conspiracy content, what I wanted to do was I wanted to be able to talk about conspiracy theories in a fictional book. And that's not the main driving force of the story, but it's a very important thing to the concepts that I'm going for. And so Josh is kind of one of those like Reddit believe it kind of people. You know, he saw it on TikTok, so it's true. Yeah. And Eli's a little bit more on the skeptical side. And I think that there's some balance there between knowledge and wisdom that I'm playing with those two characters, where Eli's got to reel Josh back in a little bit, but sometimes he's got to be like, well, Josh is kind of crazy, but he might actually know some stuff. And so he's starting to realize through this book that some of the crazy, wild conspiracy theories that Josh had might be true, even if Josh doesn't have all the facts. So that's kind of a fun interplay between those characters. Like I said, I based it off of sort of myself, where sometimes I sound like that crazy person and sometimes I'm a little skeptical, and then also base it off of other things. So it's kind of an amalgamation of friends that I've had growing up and some of my own weird tendencies. So
I think that's a great intro. I think that sets the stage pretty well. So, and just for everybody's reference, I saw somebody in the chat, Aiken, saying that he doesn't like lit RPG, but this book sounds cool. This, from what I've read so far, it is lit RPG, but it isn't like it goes super heavy into the like the stats and the levels and the stuff. It's like they're part of the story, but they're not overpowering, which is nice.
Yeah, I want to add to that too, because I agree. Like I'm a big fan of lit RPG, and I've been listening to a ton of them lately. And it's a genre that has some really great hits, and it's got a lot of not so great hits. Let's put it that way. What's the word I'm looking for? Like,
it's hit or
I don't want
miss.
to say trash, but it's got a lot of fluff. It's got a lot of fluff.
It does. This is actually, when you look at the history of science fiction, that's actually how science fiction started out.
Yes.
It was like it developed from this massive churn of people throwing out stuff that was, some of it was great and some of it was really, really not great, and a lot of it was just fluff.
Right. Yeah, and so I'm trying to avoid that. Like, I want to write a deeper story, obviously. And I will say, like, sometimes I do like those fluff stories of lit RPG, because to me it's popcorn stuff. So I've got a series right now that is the pulpiest series I've ever read. It's technically not good writing, but I've read 15 of the books, because sometimes I just want to break from reality, and I like that, whatever. But
that's what lit RPG is for me too.
Yeah,
it's like there's
a
particular author I like, and I'll read his stuff every now and then, just because it's a break from life. So
Sater in chat, by the way, he pointed out where Lind is. The only reason anyone would know where Lind is because, yes, they do have a combine demolition derby once a year. And when I lived there, that happened. And you go from a town of 500 people, all of a sudden 10,000 people are in this town, and it's the desert. It's literally the desert, and 10,000 people in the desert watching combine tractors just crash into each other. So that's what Lind is known for. So, but yeah,
hilarious.
they get trapped in this game, and I don't want to go too much into all of that. You guys can read it, and I'm going to be posting this up. I mean, it'll be out when it's out, but I'll keep you guys updated. Probably won't be too long before, especially I'm thinking maybe if you're on Locals, I'll start giving you guys some of the early edited chapters and stuff like that, because I could definitely use some support. But what they get trapped in this video game, and they're fighting in another town that I used to know quite well, called Deer Park, Washington, at this point in the story. And in this part of the story, they come across what's known as the Tacoma Narrows octopus, or the Pacific Northwest tree octopus. I didn't make any of these creatures up. These are like creatures that I've read about. And this is literally a tree octopus. So I changed the tree octopus to have this like venomous attack. And they're in the woods. It's nighttime. The ink attacks from these tree octopuses, I mean, they're just swarming them. And the ink attacks are very poisonous. So they're trapped in a hunting cabin, already puking and sick from corrosive damage. It's showing up in their indicators, because, again, this is a lit RPG. And I think that's a good lead into a snippet from this chapter that I wrote called Night of the Living Squid. And Jared actually helped me edit this. So I think we're ready to share this with you guys. So if you guys will allow me, let's just jump into this one. So this starts somewhere in the middle of the chapter. So I already set it up. So here it starts. I'll start right here. It says, without communication or even much conscious thought, we both moved to the center of the small shack. We took up a position back to back, watching and waiting for a tentacle to slide out from between the floorboards or underneath the door. Every now and then we heard a splat on the roof, another octopus falling on the shack from the trees above. The wet slapping of tentacles on the windows added to the fucked up ambience. They knew we were in here, but would they be able to get through? How long would they keep at it before going after an easier target? An eternity passed. The few rays of sunshine left peeking around our hasty fortifications faded into darkness. An owl hooted in the distance, and then everything went completely silent. We held our breath, unable to move, hoping and praying that the threat had finally passed. The refrigerator shot across the room, clipping Josh's arm as it flew by. A giant tentacle burst through the window, sending tiny shards of glass raining across the room, groping blindly for its next meal. Josh rolled onto his back and began to pump rounds into the massive, slimy appendage. I followed him up with a stream of 9mm hollow points. White numbers flashed amidst gouts of blood and ink. The massive slab of oozing black flesh pulled back, and as soon as the window was no longer blocked by its mass, the smaller octopi started pouring in like a tidal wave. We were in way too small a space. They would overrun us in seconds. I fired into the mass of undulating tentacles, emptying the rest of my mag. Instead of reloading, I dropped it into my sling and drew the judge from its holster, sending a barrage of small but effective shotgun pellets into the throng. The sheer volume of flashing damage indicators and EXP notifications only blended into the confusion. The numbers meant nothing to me. I was only concerned with stopping the advance of 1,000 tiny arms. Josh fed 5 shells into the tube magazine of his 870 in the few seconds it took me to fire those rounds, and he was back into the fight. Riot control, bitches! Boom, boom, boom! The mountain of squirming tentacles was like a nightmare straight out of Lovecraft, the way they were piled on top of each other, but Josh's supercharged riot control rounds blew it apart, sending the creatures flying away from the window. He advanced on the entry point with each shot. He might have been trying to make a hole for us to escape through. I don't actually know, because when the magazine ran dry and he started rapidly reloading his shotgun, the massive tentacle punched its way back into the room. I tackled Josh to the ground a split second before he was pounded into a meat pancake. We stayed low and scooted back towards the wall where the refrigerator had landed. The tentacle whipped back and forth over our heads. I made sure I was reloaded and caught Josh reaching for the orange shells on his bandolier. No dragon's breath, I shouted, remembering what happened the last time I used those inside a wooden building. He looked disappointed, but quickly started loading more buckshot. Before we could start pouring fire into the giant slimy tentacle, the bed frame shot across the room as well, and another monstrous appendage joined the search. We were totally screwed. If one of those massive tentacles got a hold of us, we'd be crushed into paste. If we shot either tentacle enough to do serious damage and it drew back, even more of the tiny bastards would pour in. This thing had to have a weak spot, but how could we get at it? I looked at how the tentacles bent as they came through the windows. I heard the rafters creak and saw the thin ceiling flexing and sagging above us. The monster's body had to be on the roof. How often can you use riot control? It recharges based on kills. There's not a set amount, just after I've shed enough monster's blood, it lets me know it's available again. Shit, I muttered. There goes that idea. I briefly considered burning the place down and hiding in the refrigerator until morning, but not only would we probably not both fit, even if we did, we'd be cooked alive. I had to think, had to remember what we had that we could use to our advantage. Then I recalled the bear trap. The bear trap we looted from this cabin earlier had a length of chain attached to it, so when a bear or monster was caught inside, the chain, which was tied to a tree, would keep it in place. The other half of my plan I was less sure about. I readied the bear trap as Josh told me, and told Josh my idea. Are you crazy? I'm going to die trying to get that thing. We need the tentacles to stay in place while we find a weak spot in the giant squid monster. Trust me, anything else means we'll be overwhelmed by the smaller creatures or crushed. Shit, man. Why do I have to be the one to go all Rambo on this thing? Because you're the one with the Rambo knife. You still have that hammer you looted earlier, right? Use that to pound it down. I got to work securing the bear trap to a sturdy-looking 4x4 that might have been holding up this section of the cabin, just hoping we wouldn't bring the roof down on our heads. The tentacles couldn't quite reach us where we were, but they were both thrashing about and pounding on the floor in a searching pattern. When I had the trap ready, I nodded to Josh, who had his massive Bowie knife in one hand and a mini sledgehammer in the other. Here goes nothing. I slid the bear trap right underneath one tentacle as it pounded to the ground. The trap snapped shut, ink and blood fountained, and the massive octopus creature tried to pull its tentacle back out the window. The chain snapped tight. The 4x4 held. Yes! At the same time, Josh swung the giant Bowie knife down on the other tentacle, driving it through the rubbery appendage and into the floorboards. The tentacle jerked and nearly pulled the knife free right away, but Josh hit it again. Then again. He hammered the knife deeper and deeper into the floor with the mini sledge until it held. How long either would hold was uncertain, so this next part had to be done fast. I pointed at a dip in the ceiling. Right there. Josh followed the barrel of my AK and wasted no time cutting a hole through the thin roof and into the monster on the other side. Wood chips flew with each blast, then blood and ink started to trickle through the ruined plywood. I let my AK rip, dumping an entire magazine into the hole in a matter of seconds. Numbers went from white to yellow, but there was still a ways to go, and now the monster was thrashing, fit to rip the entire shack apart. I reloaded as Josh poured more buckshot into the expanding hole. Big globs of gore and slime were now falling through to splash on the floor. The familiar sting of toxic ink filled the air. As I was slamming the mag home, a sudden pounding like a jackhammer from hell filled the room, and the building shook. A third tentacle slammed through the front door, ripping it from its hinges. It must have sensed where the shotgun blasts were coming from, because this time it found its target quickly. It wrapped itself around Josh and began to squeeze. I moved toward him. I felt like it had only taken an instant for his face to start turning blue, and then there was a cracking of bones. It was a reaction, an understandable but ultimately wrong reaction. There was no time to think. I'd never be able to free Josh from the tentacle like that, and if I shot it, I'd just risk hitting Josh. There was only one thing I could do. I fired up into the hole again. Orange numbers flew everywhere as the bullets ripped through. Blood was flowing like a river onto the floor of the old ruined shack. I ran dry and changed mags. This was my last one. Would it be enough? Another few seconds of mad firing and the numbers were in the red. This time when I ran dry, I dropped the rifle into its sling and drew the Taurus Judge. Boom, 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 boom. 5 rounds of .45 long Colt pounded into the hole. 4 times I saw red numbers. The 5th time I saw white. Plus 2,985 EXP. Josh flopped onto the floor, coughing and spitting blood. He was hurt, but he was alive. The tentacles went limp, still blocking all 3 entrances to the shack. The smaller octopi couldn't get in. I fell on my knees next to Josh and puked my guts all over the gore-soaked floorboards. So
that last line's one of my favorites.
Yeah,
So,
you helped me with that line, though, but I liked it.
No, it's great. And I let a couple of my boys read this. So I have a 15-year-old and I have a 10-year-old. And I let them both read it. And they're both like, this is just cool. I like this.
Oh,
this
thanks,
is just
man.
cool. So
I should have gave a little content warning. I'm not writing this book PG. Let's just put it that way. It's not full of anything disturbing, but it's a 25 and a 27-year-old truck driver, former military guy. I tried to write it as honestly as I could of those things. So there is some cursing in it, but outside of the violence and some swear words and stuff like that, I'm not trying to go crazy. But
no, it's different audiences. A lot of my stuff I write so that it is safe for kids, even though it's stuff I would want to read. But everything in its place. I have no objection to any of that stuff. Like
Freak said, this makes me want to play some shooters. Freak, do you play Escape from Tarkov? Because that was my big inspiration as far as the menus and things like that went. So So that's your book. It's fully written. It needs editing and it needs some production. It needs, when you get into the final phases of a book, you discover just how much goes into releasing one. And we don't, so you don't know when it's coming out, but it is fully written and it is in process. It is coming. Right.
So that's, I don't know, from here, do you want to go to talk about one of the ones I'm working on, or do you want to go to the other thing, or do you want to just go to general stuff? How do you want to do this?
Let's talk about your work for a minute, and then let's talk about the thing that we're working on. But real quick, I want to say thank you for the $5 Rumble Rant Seder. Will there be an audiobook? You read pretty good. I don't want to read my own audiobook. I really don't. Some people have asked me if I'm going to. I don't plan on it, but I do think I found the person I want to read it.
Sweet.
So I'll tell you about it. I haven't had a chance to tell you about it, but I think I found the person I want to read it. So yes, if you guys want to donate anything like that, you can. I've got all my links below. But as Jared said, the writing process is fun, and then it becomes pricey towards the end.
And it's a lot of work toward the end.
It is.
The editing part is just a huge amount of just drudging through it, and it takes a lot of time, and by the time you're done, you probably don't want to see it again. At least that's my experience most of the time.
I've been read it. Okay, so like there is a scene or two in the third part of this book. I wrote it in 3 parts. It's like 34 chapters. So there's a scene or two that I've known for a while that I want to rework, and I've been so not wanting to because of the editing process is you just start to hate. You start to hate it after a while. Yeah. So like I'm trying to mentally prepare myself to have to go back and rewrite some stuff, but we're getting there. It'll be out when it's out, but Jared's been really helpful in getting me there. And I should have said I wrote it. It was 105,000 words in 2.5 months. I then went out on the road for 3 weeks. Told my wife, I'm like, I want to take a week off of work, and the only way I can do that is to go out for 3 weeks. So we took a week off for 4th of July, and in the 3 weeks leading up to the 4th of July, I did nothing but work on the second draft. And the second draft went from 105,000 words to 120,000 words. And then since then, I've done another draft, and we're getting there. We're getting there. But it's it should be probably just over 120,000 words when it's done. I think the sequel will be a bit longer. I'm probably 10,000 words into that one. So
that's a normal thing. Is your sequel's a bit longer. So from turning to the one that I'm working on, I'm actually just releasing my 5th book. It's not a real big book. It's only about 25,000 words. So I'm doing 2 series. One of them is a little more normal length. One of them is a little shorter, more bite-sized. This one is a fantasy story. It is, some of you may be familiar with Winter Night. It's the first fantasy book I wrote. This one is Path of the Talonwood. And it's coming out
I have Winter
August
Night right here,
9th.
By the way.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Winter Night's the first one. Path of the Talonwood is the second one. Path of the Talonwood's coming out August 9th. And my favorite part of the back of the book, I'll just recite the poem off the back because I remember it. A soul of stone and ice had she, the watcher of the wood, and from it came a dark resolve to triumph as she could. Though tried and tested... Actually, you know what? I say I remember it, and then I go, wait a minute. Okay, yeah.
It's different when you're on camera. You have to remember. I read that part earlier before we got on the stream, and I didn't screw it up, and then I screwed up like 10 times.
Yeah, I'm with you. Well, to me, it was that I actually edited this poem as part of my final edit, and I'm like, wait, what did I do to that? So a soul of stone and ice had she, the watcher of the wood, and from it came a dark resolve to triumph as she could. Though tried and tempted by the world, pursued by pain and strife, her courage polished by the cinders of her former life. No crowd arrayed against her could ever force her heart to yield. No enemy could overwhelm her, though alone upon the field. And so, yeah, it's a fun story. It's a fun fantasy story. It isn't all poetry. That's just, there are a few lines in there that are, but I did try to make the poetry kind of descriptive of what the book's about. And so that's the one that I'm releasing August 9th. And then we've got, Can I go into what we're doing?
Absolutely, man. Yeah, let's talk about it.
So PJ and I have decided we're going to co-author something as well. And this is, technically it's set in the Energemetra 6 universe, but the way I built that universe, it can expand to basically to be any kind of story you want. So this isn't actually a sci-fi story exactly. It's more like steampunk. If you had to put it in a box, it'd be more like steampunk. If you had to put it in a box,
that's the box it would be in, yeah.
But it doesn't even fit that one really, because so the idea is that the technology that they're dealing with is early 1900s, late 1800s. But they also have some kind of almost magic thing going on with Energemetra 6. And there are some, what would we say? They're fighting demons. Is that a fair?
Yeah, that's what I would call. I mean, that's what they call them too. So whether they really know what they are or not, they generally just call them demons. Yeah.
And I kind of want to give, if you don't mind, I kind of want to give our audience here a taste of what they actually are and where they come from later.
I do want you to, but I'm going to plug your book for you really quick.
Okay.
If you guys have not read Bright Star, I have actually I splurged on myself. I got all of his books in hardcover, signed. So there's Bright Star. There is From the Void. Right here. And then I'm halfway through The Veil of Mysteries right now. And these are very good sci-fi books. They're if you guys like Ender's Game would be a good one to like.
Yeah, it's a good comp.
Yeah. Good.
The other thing I would say about it is if you were to take Star Wars and you were to write it with a protagonist who's younger, it would look kind of like this also. So it's that sort of feel to it. And go on.
Oh, no, I was just saying, like, I've been really enjoying them, guys. If you guys are missing out, I saw some people in the chat go, wait, I know Jared. Yes, Jared has been on this show with me before. He's the author of 5 books now. I have 4 of them. I need to get Path of the Talonwood next. But please go give him go check him out, because what Jared's saying is true. In this universe, there are people who have been flung to different star systems. They've gone through basically the void, through what you might call a wormhole or portal. But they wind up in different places. In the universe that we're not the universe we're building, but inside of that universe, we're building a story about a ship that ends up on a very different planet. And for reasons that Jared will explain in a minute, they're set back in technology quite a ways. So it's kind of a steampunk Western sci-fi, and it's also none of those. It's probably more heavily on like the Western influence, but it's got all of them. So it's really a lot of fun.
Well, and it's something that it's like we just started talking about what kind of thing we'd want to do, and this kind of just this monster kind of just appeared out of the ether, and we're like, okay, so this is fun, this is really cool. And so far, writing it is a blast. Like, I'm looking forward to getting to write some more of the different scenes that we had talked about. But the first thing that I wrote was the prologue, and so what I'll do is I'll read that prologue. So where we're coming from is the Energemetra 6 universe, which is a sci-fi universe. But where we're going to is not that. So this is how we get there.
All right.
Okay. Her name was Gellikide, and she was the ugliest, most execrable, most odious, and by far the most vermin-ridden prison vessel the pre-Imperial Dominion ever captured from the Regalian Space Navy. Gellikide had not always been a prison ship, but her new owners could find nothing better to do with a vessel that had been holed clear through more than 15 times at the Second Battle of Solace. She leaked air like a sieve, even after they patched her up as best they were able. The matrix of her hull was far too complex to be repaired properly by a navy as primitive as that of the pre-Imperial Dominion. They lacked real repair yards in situ. Sorry, lost my place. There. They lacked real repair yards in situ, and so had little use for the previously formidable battleship Gellikide. She would have been abandoned if there had been anywhere else fit to keep mutineers and traitors, far less the political leadership of captured foes like Oldoran or Dathavan. Her pseudographs still worked, after all, and whoever said traitorous scum and politicians needed air. 30% of a standard atmosphere was survivable, mostly. It's doubtful her passengers ever knew the original meaning of her name, equality. The name held a certain measure of irony. Gellikide was their own personal hell in space, for however long they might be cursed to incarceration in her distended insectoid belly. So it was, and so it might have stayed, but for Captain Jace Shorty Flanagan, there interred for the remainder of his natural life, on charges of conspiracy, mutiny, and theft, of the Admiral's favorite pleasure slave. Shorty's friends always thought he got a raw deal, but Admiral Ethan Lysimachus was not a forgiving sort, and when he got drunk, Shorty had a tendency to go head over heels for even the more dubious members of the fairer sex. The stunning Madrina Rhea was anything but dubious. True to form, Admiral Lysimachus never forgave Shorty, and it wasn't long before he found himself committed to Gellikide, his own personal Hades, where he would remain for almost 2 months New Standard Time, nearly a year Old Earth Time if anybody had still been counting it as such. Understandably, for reasons that will soon become clear, the personnel records of Gellikide's inmates were lost. What transpired aboard her would never be fully known, except by Shorty and the few guards who survived the ordeal, and they certainly weren't talking. All that remained in the Dominion's databanks after Gellikide disappeared were the bare facts of its departure. On 31/10/1747 at 1822 hours New Standard Time, Gellikide was permanently, unhappily moored to military outpost Gleipnir, boasting an estimated 24,300 inmates in her mutilated bulbous bulk. According to all records, her drive had been permanently deactivated and was scheduled to be duly dismantled as soon as an appropriate engineering team could be found, which might be several months or even years at the Dominion Navy's glacial pace. At 1823 hours, Gellikide recorded the arrival of the Lady Star, the personal yacht of System Governor Ethan Lysimachus, with the estimable Madrina Rhea alone on the passenger manifest. Exactly 5 minutes later, at 1828 hours, Gellikide had launched a single malfunctioning ship-to-ship missile. This was later determined to be nothing more than a damaged Regalian penetration aid, which had somehow been missed during her decommissioning. Even without a payload, the missile was more than capable of fouling the tractor port, generating the mooring line that held her fast to Gleipnir. Free at last, squawking just about every mayday and emergency signal then known to either Regalians or Dominion, Gellicide proceeded to fire her engines in a decidedly non-disabled fashion, fleeing madly for the edge of the solar system. At 1844 hours, Admiral System Governor Lysimachus, being especially forgiving after having been interrupted in the middle of his evening constitutional, ordered a full barrage of Lorraine Industries Barracuda Mark VII missiles be sent in immediate pursuit, and commanded Gellicide, now in the firm hand of former Dominion Captain Shorty Flanagan and the wayward Madrina Rhea, to return to Gleipnir, quote, "This instant or else, and if I can't have you, he can't either." They didn't return, but Shorty had a trick or two up his sleeve, changing his heading toward the immediately adjacent colonization command as the missiles raced home. 2 minutes later, at 1846, the missiles self-destructed on the apparent instruction of Admiral Lysimachus' own personal override code, inexplicably sent in an omnidirectional pulse from Gellicide. The code was rapidly changed, and Gleipnir Tactical dramatically outperformed Shorty's admittedly unfavorable forecasts. By 1854, another shoal of Barracudas had been launched in hot pursuit. For reasons that never actually became clear, it was not immediately apparent to the tactical command staff on Gleipnir that the missile's intercept with Gellicide actually lay in the space beyond Colonization Command's massive unmanned wormhole generator, though some dissatisfied staffers would be heard to grumble, when they were properly drunk, that they had told him, but the Admiral insisted. The generator, not scheduled for a colonization mission for the past month, still only required less than 3 minutes to spin up, and immediately proceeded to do so for reasons that again were never quite pinned down. Both Shorty and Admiral Lysimachus miscalculated. Shorty failed to give Lysimachus' staff sufficient credit, not that he had much choice in the matter. For his part, Tactical Commander Stuart McNeil, under some slight duress from Lysimachus, failed to realize that their missiles would arrive too late at the now active and rapidly fluctuating wormhole. Authors note it wasn't actually a wormhole, it was a universal puncture into null space, driven by secondary Energemetra 6 field effects. Not that it actually matters what the idiots at Dominion Colonization Command called it. By some inexplicable mischance, the wormhole opened, the ship arrived, and the missiles detonated prematurely, all within a few femtoseconds of each other, at roughly 20 hours New Standard Time on 31/10/1747. Dominion records state that not even Gellicade's rats survived, though Dominion Colonization Command would later demand an accounting of even their tiny unwelcome bodies before the dust of their vaporized wormhole generator ever settled. Gellicade's passengers would have disagreed, if they weren't busy puking their collective guts out. By whatever whim of fate, the ever-so-incorrectly named wormhole generator had completed its cycle at exactly the right moment for Shorty, his new fiancée, and his merry band of outlaws to pass through, only to be punched across the width and breadth of reality by the premature detonation of 12 Barracuda Mark VII missiles. Several subjective hours later, very much poorer for their lost meals and the insanity-inducing trip across the void between universes, they re-entered normal space in a location none of them had ever seen before. Nor would they have time to contemplate their luck, good or otherwise, as the ship was still rapidly leaking atmosphere from several of its now reopened battle scars. It took precisely 15 hours for them to locate and set course for a planet that was even marginally capable of supporting life. The next 4 days of travel were the most hair-raising any of the group ever experienced, and when they arrived, the massive ship, which had never actually been intended to enter a planet's atmosphere, somehow managed to land without killing a single newly emancipated citizen of the brand-new human world of Lucina. Sadly, the group's misfortune did not end there. Their hastily chosen landing site, originally believed to be a salt flat, was actually a giant patch of white algae, sitting on the surface of the only thing the group had ever smelled that was even fouler than Gellicade's remaining air. The Olfactory Bayou was very probably the worst possible location the unintentional colonists could have chosen as a landing site. Gellicide, already abused by 2 battles and an unconventional re-entry into atmosphere, rapidly began to sink. Of the original 24,378 passengers, 24,212 escaped the sinking wreck, to stand gaping on the mucky shore. Other than that, the good ship Gellicide and her cargo Of the good ship Gallicide and her cargo, all else was lost, except the vermin. The new residents of Lucina swore to a man. Every single rat survived.
I love that. I love that whole thing, but I love that final line. And I actually put my other favorite line in the chat for people. What was it? Whoever said that traders and politicians needed air.
I some of this stuff just comes to me, and it's just too hilarious not to put in there. It's like this whole book is entertaining. It's intended to be just entertaining, and that sort of semi-sarcastic, almost Western desperado feel is what we're going for. And so the whole, starting out with a space pirate and introduction is a totally cool way to approach it, I think. I thought the whole thing was fun.
Well, what was so cool is, like, we had talked about this idea on the phone, and I don't know when it was. One day, a few days later, maybe, you sent me that intro, and I was like, oh, we have a book. We absolutely have a book. So then I read that, and I was so excited. I started writing the next few chapters where it shifts from POV to, well, it's still third person, but it shifts to a character that we're calling Stranger. For that's the only name he knows. He doesn't know who he is. There's a funny little backstory about why, someone calls him Stranger. He's like, oh, I guess that's my name. And he sticks with it, right? So you've got this kind of lone bounty hunter out there in the swampy area of this planet Lucina that's been set back in time, and it's kind of developed in this Western way. And my wife, going back to my wife, who's probably watching upstairs right now, she read all of Patch Notes Apocalypse. She was mad at me when she finished it because she said, I'm mad because I want to know what happens next. So she enjoyed that book. She's not a big lit RPG fan. She read your intro and the first chapter that I wrote. And after she was done reading, she's like, "Oh, this is actually good." She's like, "Oh, you're going to be an author," and I was like, "I guess." I found it funny because the way it came across was like, "Oh, I finally believe in you now." But it was really funny.
At the same time, though, that shows that she's honest. She's like realizing, and it's cool to see in real time people realize, no, this is really cool. And that is just, I don't know, as an author, that's actually totally cool to experience. It's like watching one time a few months ago, I was at a conference and I watched a girl read a whole one of my books from the void in front of me. She sat down, she was bored. She sat down and read it. And by the time she's done, she hands me her credit card. She says, I want it. And I'm like, wow, what a compliment, man. That's amazing. Like that just I still remember it. I still feel good about it. And I'm looking forward to seeing her next year, hopefully at the same conference. It's like, that's the sort of thing that will stick with me for the rest of my life because it's so cool. So it's watching people realize and see how good it is there's nothing to compare. It's like,
no, you're right. And you said something a minute ago that I love to hit on because you said it's fun. And it's like, I think that people forget that you can have stories, because I think this is where we have this big crossover, not just in belief, because we have similar beliefs, but we believe when it comes to writing that, or books, that they should be fun, but that they also should have some depth to them. And that's what I love about your works, and that's what I'm trying to do with mine. I think that in this, Jared, I don't want to spoil the themes that we're going for. You'll discover them as you read, but we have very clear themes throughout, but that doesn't mean that we're not having fun with it. We're not, like there's
right. Well, a fun story is the price of entrance, right? It's like, if you're not giving a fun story to your readers, then you might as well not be writing. It doesn't, people don't want to be preached at. We get plenty of that from the woke mob doing the mainstream entertainment complex. We don't need preaching at us. What we need is fun stories that hopefully have something useful buried in them as well. Like if I connect with a character, that's a plus, man. That's great. If we're able to have some themes, or if we're able to have some truth in there that's actually valuable, that people relate to, and they go, it helps me to see life a little better. It helps me to see things differently. That's great. But you don't want to preach. That's like it makes something
the thing is, if
worthless.
you tell a good story, what is a good story is the only way you can tell a good story is if it's true. And I mean that as in like the way that the characters react to the world, the way that people act in the situations they're in, and the outcomes and the themes. If they're true, then that makes a good story. So at the end of the day, if you're writing something that's preachy but it's not a good story, then who cares? And if you're writing a good story,
you don't need to be preachy.
It doesn't have to be preachy, because you're going to be telling truth in that story to make it good.
And I want to keep going down this road a little bit, but there is one other thing I want to read to people. I want to read them my Star Tenders piece.
Do that, but real quick, I just want to say to the chat.
Before we're done. Before we're done. Let's do that right before we're done.
I would like to say to the chat, we're going to keep chatting. We're going to talk for a little bit more. We got some more stuff to get to, but if you have any questions for Jared or myself about our books, about the things that we're working on, start dropping those in the chat right now. We'll take a few minutes and just answer questions. I know I've probably missed some that you guys have been saying, but I'd love to answer any questions you have or get any feedback. But so that's what we're working on. Do we want to talk about the Stranger and the universe we're building a little bit?
No, I'd love to. So, this is all kind of in flux still, because unlike PJ's book or the ones that I've already written, those are down, they're finished. Right. And a lot of times, and this is fair warning for everybody, a lot of times when you're writing, you get halfway through and you go back and you change major things because you discover that it needs to be something that you thought it wasn't, or there needs to be something different there and so that's something that will almost certainly happen with this book. There will almost certainly be major things that get changed. But at its current conception, talking about it as its current conception, the idea is that Stranger he doesn't know where he's from. And actually, we don't know where he's from yet either. We don't. We have ideas. I have some ideas for where he might be from, but there are like 5 of them and they're all totally different. So we don't know where he's from. He doesn't know where he's from. He appeared on this planet, which nobody knows how to get there. This colony group, it wasn't even a colony group. This prison ship got lost in space, essentially, wound up at this planet, landed and lost their ship. So they're reduced to a very basic tech level. They've got nothing that they started with. And Stranger appears on this planet in totally mysterious circumstances, and he doesn't know who he is. He doesn't have any memory. And so how about you go forward from there?
Yeah. So we're writing about a planet that these people, let me put it this way. There are creatures that existed before they got there, and they don't know exactly what they are, where they come from, but they call them demons. They inhabit many different forms, and there's a bounty system that is partially based on harvesting parts from these demons that are being used by this society for advancements in technology and all of this stuff. So there's some conflict that's going on there with basically using demonic energy to power a society that we're exploring with this book.
Right.
And Stranger falls in a very different category than everybody else. There's reasons that are already being explored in where we're writing, but will be explored throughout the book, of why he's a bit of a loner, where he comes from, what his belief system is, and if his belief system or the other belief systems are true on this. So there's a lot of 6-shooters and lever actions and
adrenochrome.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, really. That is sort of where we're going with it.
It is definitely part of this. Yeah.
It's like,
so,
yes.
Yeah.
Wink,
yeah,
wink.
So
yeah.
But yeah, I love it because it starts off, after this cool scene. I'll just spoil a little bit of what we've got down so far. It starts off with Stranger deciding he's going to try to work with another group of this ragtag group of bounty hunters, and they're pretty unhinged and pretty weird in their own ways. And they're chasing after this pig-faced 7-foot-tall humanoid in the bayous. And there's a pretty cool gun scene that happens there. There's some. I don't want to spoil too much, but like that's what we're going for, and it's very fun. We're only, I think our rough draft is only like 13,000-ish words in, so we're kind of playing it out.
Along.
But I just loved your intro so much, and this idea that I wanted to share with people.
Well, and that intro also inspired me to write a piece about where the demons came from, and we'll read that at the end. But the whole thing though is like. Actually, the adrenochrome point is really kind of an important one. What I would say, and if you don't mind me getting a little more philosophical here for a minute.
Absolutely, dude.
Our society is so used to this double-layered, and I say double, but really there are 3 or 4 layers of it's okay to believe this. The mainstream narrative has kind of crumbled over the last few years. I don't know a lot of people who actually believe the whole mainstream narrative now, but that's number one level of it's okay to believe this. Number two level is sort of a semi, it's almost attached to the MAGA movement, sort of. It's like, we believe that some of these things that have traditionally been believed by the mainstream narrative they're not right, they're not true. And people who believe them are kind of like, they're stuck in a time when all we had was CNN and ABC and nobody really, we didn't have any information. And then there's the other layer where people believe in these conspiracy things, and they're considered far out or fringe or whatever. And I know this is true for you. It is definitely true for me, where I've operated in all of these worlds with all of these people. And I go, you know what? None of this is really pointing to the truth. It's all kind of a distraction. The truth is that we live on a world that is coming to the end of an age. Jesus Christ is coming back sometime. And when that happens, everything changes. And all of these other narratives are kind of pushing people away from that. And so, bringing this back to fiction, one of the things we have the opportunity to do in fiction is to touch on some of those narratives, whether they're conspiracy, whether they're whatever, that we think have some truth in them, do it in a way that's fun, but also point people back in a direction where, actually this is pointing to something that's true and useful and valuable and whatever. And we can do that in a way that is non-intrusive, that where we're still telling a good story, where it's all fun and the characters are all discovering all the things.
Right. No, you you nailed it exactly. And I think that there's a certain level too where it's like the opposite of the ABC, CNN. Walter Cronkite was perfect and never told a lie, and isn't the media great and wonderful?
Right.
The opposite of that is just a total detachment from reality, and that becomes its own dogmatic viewpoint. And in both cases, people are missing the greater truth behind everything, and that is a spiritual truth, and that truth does lead people ultimately always to Jesus. So I think that all of those things are what we explore in the fiction that we write with the themes and concepts. Yes, my book is got cryptids, and you'll see them fight Wendigo, and it's fun, and there's stats and things like that.
Right.
There's a deeper religious or spiritual journey that Eli is going through, and
call it a truth
confronting.
Journey.
It is a truth journey. It is, and he's confronting, not just Josh's conspiracy theories, and not just the nature. He's literally actually confronting the nature of reality is a big concept I'm going for. And for people who are interested in those types of stories, go back and listen to Jared and I's coverage of The Matrix, because if you listen to that episode, you'll understand the mind frame that I was in as I wrote this book and the themes that I'm putting throughout. So, because that's the fringe. That's another one, right? Is everything is true or all of reality is false. And both are missing the greater truth.
And it isn't even just that they're missing it. They are actually constructed lies.
Yeah,
it's like
true.
Lie layered on lie layered on lie, trying to get us all pointed in a direction that doesn't matter somehow. It's like when you start to dive down the conspiracy rabbit hole, you have been much more immersed in that world than I have in a lot of ways. But what you discover is that people just get sucked into these things that point them to stuff that doesn't matter. It's like it's all of the, what's that one that you so loved doing, the Tartaria or Flat Earth or like any of this stuff where you look at it and you go, no, actually there are designed lies here that are just trying to pull us all off track. And the Flat Earth one's a great example. It's like, this is a narrative that is designed to manipulate Christians. It's designed to manipulate a particular group of people in a particular way. And that's like, it's one layer after another, and you find these things. And it's just not something that, like, we could sit and we could do a show together, like in Dark Ocean, where we talk about these things. And there are certain episodes I'd love to put out with you. Like, we still need to talk about Bitcoin, that kind of thing. It's like, there are things that are fun to talk about, and maybe it'll help people. But by the same token, you're still dealing with stuff that is missing the big picture. It's missing the overall point. And you can deal with that stuff so much easier in a fictional context sometimes, because you're not dealing with all of the prejudices and stuff, and instead you can just paint a picture and let people look at it. And when they look at the picture, they can take useful things out of it. They don't have to agree with you 100%. They don't have to believe everything you believe.
And you can paint that picture in words in a way that's not just preachy. And that's to me, like, I've had a lot of people ask me if I was going to write, about this conspiracy or that conspiracy, or write books in that way. And it's like, to me, I feel like fiction is a much more effective form of communicating truth than just just a list of facts. Because people can take those lists of facts and twist them whichever way they want. And I think if you paint a picture in words good enough, people are going to see something true in it. And I think that takeaway is a much more deeply resonating truth anyway. Because again, you could write people can write nonfiction, this is the facts and this is the facts, and both of them are 100% in disagreement with each other, and they're completely missing the greater truth anyway. No, there's no Tartaria in this book, by the way, for people asking
it's too early to call this. I think we could put Tartaria in our book with Stranger.
Yeah,
I think we could totally put Tartaria in there. That would be I mean, you think about what's going on that planet, we could totally do something like that would be hilarious. It would be totally hilarious.
It would be very fun. I will say I nearly lost my mind those 6 months I dove into Tartaria. That was the longest I ever worked on an episode, because I just listened to everything everyone said forever. Yeah. That was something. That was something, guys.
Oh.
Where do we go from here? People are asking, when's the book come out? Things like that. I can't give you a date. I will say, as far as lit RPG goes, there's a really great way that I've seen that supports that particular genre and helps grow, get people into it. And I want to just put this out there. Like, I don't expect to make a single dime off of this first book. What I really want to do is get it out there in front of people. So at some point, I'm going to be putting the chapters up for free on a site called Royal Road. If you guys want to check out Royal Road, if you're into lit RPG, whatever, if you want to just create an account so that way when my book's up there, you can read it and rate it and help it grow that way, that would be great. Part of it too is it will be as far as the non-physical copy goes, if you want to read it on a screen, it will be up for free on Royal Road. Beyond that, I really want to make an audiobook of this. That's how I listen to books.
Same.
The reason I actually haven't finished all of Jared's books was I kept trying to read them physically, and I don't have the time. And then I was like, you know what? He's got a podcast. So by the way, for you audio listeners, go follow Energemetrist 6 podcast. Listen to it. All of his stuff is up there. It's been read by a live cast, and I've been super enjoying it. I'm almost through the Veil of Mysteries now. I think about halfway through the Veil of Mysteries now. But audiobook is very important to me. So working to set that money aside. If you guys want to support, make that happen. That would be really awesome. But that's my goal. Is Jared and me are going to work on the editing really soon. It'll first be available on Royal Road, I think, and then I want to put it out where people get physical copies. And most important to me, anyway, is getting an audiobook done. So that's the goal, guys.
Two things, actually. And number one, yes, all of the audio of my stuff is available freely. We read it as a podcast. PJ points out he's an audio guy. It is not read at professional audiobook quality, and I actually kind of did that on purpose. I wanted to make it available for free to people, but I also do want to get a professional quality audiobook out there that people can buy if they really want to, if they want to support me or whatever. But then you can also go get the podcast and just listen to it, because it's all there. And it's available on Rumble, it's available on YouTube, or if you just put Energemetrist 6 into any podcast app, it's there. The other thing is, if you want ebook copies of my stuff, if you go to e6universe.com and you sign up for the email list, I just email them out. I want people to have the stories. I have physical copies up for sale there of the 5 books that I currently have available. I need to do a little renovation on my shop there so that you can get a package deal on all of it, but it's all there. So that's available. I am thinking about doing the Royal Road thing as well, PJ. I think that's a great idea. Because to me, this is more about getting stories in people's hands, and people like physical books. So if you give them the story and they like it, then the chances of them going and getting a physical book at some point is pretty good.
Right, so, exactly. And some of the biggest books, at least in sci-fi and lit RPG in the last few years, have been on Royal Road completely for free and then have made it as audiobooks and have made it as physical books and stuff like that. If you guys aren't familiar, please go make an account. It'll be up there as soon as we can get it up there. I expect this book will come out this year. I want to have the next book done and edited and out sometime early next year is my goal. I for some reason, like the pacing of it started to click with me this week. And it's the only reason I'm looking forward to going back on the road is because I'm ready to just start writing that and getting more done with the book Jared and I are working on. I don't know if I think it's probably slower. Like this for you. That one probably will be a little slower because
we'll get it as we go. We are making progress, but it doesn't come together as fast because I don't know. It's like,
and I'm okay with that.
Me too.
We've talked about it before. That one probably will be a little slower. But I'm starting to. I probably like this with you too. But when I start to write a story, I'm really slow for a minute, and then it clicks, and I just start running with it. With this book, the Patch Notes Apocalypse, I wrote the last 30,000 words. I kid you not, in less than a week, I wrote 30,000 words towards the end in less than a week because it just came together for me so quickly by the end, and my pace just kept picking up. And so that's kind of how it is for me. It's just the boulder starts rolling down the hill, and once the idea is there, and I know where it's going, it's
I
not so
I
bad.
actually have trouble, man. This might surprise people, but I felt like I need to do this since I was 12 years old, but it's actually really hard for me to write. I'm not the way my brain naturally does things. It isn't in words or pictures. It's a kind of raw connections. It's like all of the different things and how they connect together is how my thoughts work. So actually translating that into words and getting it all on paper in a cohesive narrative in a way that works is kind of tough. And so for me, it's actually kind of, I have to be intentional about it the whole way, and it's kind of a struggle, but it's also fun. So, there's that balance there, but I still do have to make myself sit down and do it all the time. It isn't something I just naturally I love to write.
That's where I've been the last few weeks, where I'm like, I want to start the second one. It felt like work, and now it's starting to come where I'm getting pretty excited about it.
That's awesome. Use the momentum.
Yeah. I just want to see if we have other questions. I want you to read that thing.
Okay.
But thank you guys for being here, for catching this live. If you're watching this later, for continuing support. I've seen so many supportive comments. It's been hard for me being away from doing this. This podcasting is what I absolutely love so much. I've missed it. Jared brought up something too. I said earlier that I will probably do some episodes of Real Conspiracies here and there. If and when I do some stuff with Dark Ocean, it'll probably be stuff like Jared's talking about. Me and him have an idea for a show we want to do together. It'll probably be more bringing on guests and talking about subjects. It's hard for me to do the deep dive level of research that I was doing being on the road as much as I am.
Yeah.
Some of you guys who watched my stuff over the years know that I've put stupid amounts of time into some of those episodes. Yeah. And I really feel called to write, and that's where the majority of my efforts are going to go. Real Conspiracies is something that has always been easier for me to do, and it's more fun for me. So those will happen once in a while, but Jared and me have been talking about a subject that he knows a lot about. So if there's people like that you'd like to see me do an interview with, if it's not too conflicting with my family schedule and I can sit down for an hour with someone and put out a great piece of content for you guys, I'd love to do that as well. But just know that I can't put the time into podcasting where I'm currently at that I used to. And so the writing thing is going to be what I'm doing mostly, but please keep following this stuff, keep supporting. I'm going to be doing stuff for you guys. And thank you for the prayers. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the prayers. This is the third time I've tried to do a podcast since this hiatus, and this is the first time it worked. And it was just God telling me, not yet, not yet. And I knew that today was going to work, and so I felt good about it. I felt like that's what God was calling me to do, was to be here and talk with Jared, and I'm very excited. So you said that you are writing your third book in the E6 universe.
I'm
your
actually,
third full book.
It's third and fourth. So the way this has worked,
I should
guys,
explain what From the Void is. So From the Void is a series of short stories that come somewhere between the first and second book in a way, kind of.
Well,
some of them are prequels.
There's prequels, there's sequels, it's just what it is it's a way of widening the universe and giving us a window into characters who we otherwise wouldn't see. And so if I were ever to do an omnibus of the series, it would include that as in between stories for, what the purpose of it is, it's like, this is a really cool character. I wonder what his backstory is, because there's so much of that in this universe where you really don't have time to go down all the rabbit holes. So I'm making books where we go down all the rabbit holes. So right now I was thinking about reading an excerpt of book 3, but I don't really think it'd be that useful. Instead, I'd rather read the Star Tenders piece that I wrote. Okay, so
I love that piece.
Where this came from, guys, and I'll just tell you where it came from and where it's going. Where it came from was when PJ and I were talking about the world that Stranger's in. We got this idea of where these demons come from, what they are and where they come from. And this tied in with something that I had been thinking about for a long time. And this one will actually strike some of you who know some things about Lovecraft as really fun. So I will preface this with a comment about Lovecraft. Or actually, maybe I'll say it afterward. I'll do it afterward. But anyway, where the demons come from. Yeah, where the demons come from. And so I got to thinking about it, and I sat down and I just wrote this in one sitting, and I really, really like it, and PJ really liked it, and so have a couple of other people. So this will probably end up as a short story in the book that goes between book 2 and book 3, and it will probably be in the form of a conversation between an older person and some younger people, and I'll do a little bit of messing with it, but right now it's just a narrative, it's just a history. So think of it as an oral history. That's what this is. Okay, so let's see, right here. In inescapable darkness, the progenitors lie dreaming. When creation was young and matter yet unformed, the first ones swam the primordial energy streams of the trackless universe. Because they must contend with the plasma and ionized chaos of the void, the Lightmaker created their bodies from the most incorruptible and potent materials in existence. Their physical matrix was inextricably infused with Energemetra 6, the very energy of creation. So powerful was their substance that neither mere matter nor the physical forces of the universe could harm it. They were beautiful, indestructible, and glorious, and they rode the primordial energies with abandon, transporting themselves upon the very photons that traversed the cosmic soup. Each one of the first ones was unique, and unlike any other ever made. Each had its own glory and individual purpose. As the universe cooled and expanded, the first ones discovered that purpose. They fell in love with the stars, whose light was the only force capable of crossing the primeval void. The beauty of the heavens was their playground, for you see, the first ones had been made to be star tenders. Under their care were the very suns themselves, the furnaces of light and power that provided fuel to the universe, casting their light across the emptiness to nourish the planets and all the lesser life that proliferated among the more concrete states of matter, wherever it might solidify. The first one's task was critical. Without their attention, the suns that fed the universe became unstable. Their energies were liable to unbalance, exploding across the void to sear the lesser life from existence. But it was not enough for the first ones. Some few became enamored of the lesser life they had been created to protect and nourish. In their unconquerable strength and solitary majesty, the Star Tenders were arrogant. They became jealous of the only power they did not have. For the Lightmaker had not designed them to reproduce as he had the organic creatures, whose lives were governed by the stars the first ones had been created to tend. These rebels devised a plan, a means to co-opt the frail organics who were, by some remove, their charges. The first one's minds, created to understand and manipulate matter at its most basic level, turned to the task of conceiving races of supermen, each in the likeness of the mighty progenitor who spawned them, bred with the help of the same organics their stars domineered. But twisting the Lightmaker's design always has a cost, and the progenitors discovered that once their vision had been clouded by pride, the void they had been created to so effortlessly navigate had an allure they could not resist. As they had been made to tend the beauty of the heavens, their undoing was to fall in love with the very nature of the void itself. Once they had broken the Lightmaker's order, they began to find fascination in how that order might be endlessly twisted into more and more grotesquely pleasing perversions of itself. Minds that had been made to understand the very nature of matter and its permutations could also devise infinite variations upon its intended form for their own amusement, however depraved those variations might be. It was, after all, only lesser life. Of the horrors that descended from their twisted imaginations, devolving into reality-twisting abomination, human tales are too fragile to tell. The age over which they presided became the very defining essence of horror, and they, the progenitors, were its masters. So great their degradation became that the Lightmaker decreed they be caught in an imprisonment powerful enough that even the rays of light they had been made to ride would be incapable of escaping. But they were too potent to capture in any ordinary fashion, and so the stars in which they dwelt were manipulated to collapse upon themselves, imprisoning the progenitors in the very darkness they had so recklessly courted. Their bodies, made to withstand any physical force the universe might experience, could not be destroyed. But the stars, whose light they loved so dearly, were lost to them forever, until such time as the Lightmaker might bring them to a reckoning. And so, the progenitors lie even to this day, dreaming of twisted abomination in their prisons of inescapable darkness.
I love it. Everybody in chat loves it. It's one of my favorite things that I've read of yours, to be honest. That's the second time I've heard it. I think you read it to me on the phone one time. Yeah, absolutely. Again, if I see Bravo, love it, all that stuff. This is why you need to go pick up his books. Jared's such a wonderful author.
I appreciate that. I'm also a terrible marketer, like really, really terrible marketer. Like
I'm going to work with Jared on this.
Marketer ever.
Yeah.
So
no, Jared's a great writer. He needs you guys to just go spread the good news of his books, pick them up, read them, do all that good stuff. I will say, I was going to say this earlier. The chat loves your reading. And I've been encouraging Jared to read his own audiobooks and to get them out there on Audible. So just give him.
Thank you.
Just keep telling him to do it.
Okay. I will do it.
Yeah.
I will do it. I will have time now. I will do it. So real quick though, let's unpack what I just wrote there because it's totally fun also. So those of you who know anything about Lovecraft, I have not read a lot of his stuff, but the Cthulhu story is sort of it's kind of endemic to the culture now. It's like it's the base of a lot of things. And it's in his house at something, dead Cthulhu lies dreaming is the sort of the tagline. And it occurred to me
the House of Usher, I think, right?
I don't know. I don't remember. I'd have to look it up. But it's if you were to Google any part of that, it'd come right up. It's Lovecraft's like famous line. But one of the things that occurred to me a while back, and you know, whether this came from God or whether it's just my twisted imagination, I don't know. But Cthulhu is Apollyon. Cthulhu is Apollyon the Destroyer. We have a creature who lives in a parallel dimension of sorts, who is essentially trapped there until a time yet to be determined or a time yet unfound, whose twisted imagination warps the whole universe and creates horrors that humans can't even conceive of, and he's coming back. That's Abaddon. That's Apollyon the Destroyer from the Book of Revelation. That's who that is. Okay, well, so I started thinking about this, and I'm like, okay, so if that's Apollyon, and he was put in the bottomless pit, or, you know, in the way the Book of Enoch says it, I think, is in a desert, under the desert in darkness to await a time of, well, okay, so what could, if you have a creature that is a star, because these angels were sort of equivalent to stars, or they were equivalent, you know, they were made equivalent with stars somehow. If you have a creature that's like that, but that's indestructible, how would you trap it? Well, you collapse the star into a black hole. That's how you do it. And so Apollyon Abaddon is trapped in a black hole, awaiting his time to come up out of the bottomless pit, which the people at CERN are trying so very hard to open. And I wrote a little story going into that. Well, okay, it's fun. It's a totally fun story, but it also has these elements in there that are like, I really enjoyed putting it together because it's got so much stuff in there that's pointing to something.
Right. Yeah. You got the progenitors and the someone in chat, I think Aiken said, totally not Nephilim at all. Not at all.
No. Nephilim?
Nephilim? Who are Nephilim? I've never heard of these things. It's very good, dude. It's very good. So if you guys like that short story, that does lead into the book that we're writing together. It comes from the universe, the Energemetrix 6 universe. You guys can go to energemetrix6.com.
E6universe.com.
E6universe.com.
It's all right. Energemetrix6.com would get you there too, but that's where I'm hosting the podcast at, and it's still on WordPress, so it has a link right at the top, but E6universe.com is easier to spell anyway. The letter E, the number 6, universe.com. And yeah. And if, like I say, if you sign up for the email list, I just email out all the ebooks, and we've got the whole audio podcast so you can get a hold of the fiction. Or if you want to support me, feel free to buy something there. We ship it out of my house, so you're buying books directly from me.
Awesome. So yeah, go do that, guys.
Yeah.
I saw some people asking, how do I find Patch Notes Apocalypse? It's not out yet. It'll be out soon. You guys can follow me. I'm going to have a website set up soon. It's going to be redactedonline.com. I already bought it. Working on it right now. You guys can reach me with questions about this, anywhere on social media. I'm on Twitter and Instagram, but if you guys want to email me, pj@redactedonline.com. That's the name of the game in the book that I'm writing. You get to explore what that means when you get into the game or into the books. But it's redactedonline.com or pj@redactedonline.com. You guys can reach me that way. All the links are everywhere. You can find me anywhere. There's links in the description. I've got a solo.to that's got all of my other links, Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. Thank you, guys. I feel so rusty at podcasting, but I'm having a great time talking to you.
This has been totally fun, man. It's like talking shop and letting people in on it. It's totally cool.
Yeah. And if you guys like this and you want to see more, we'll definitely try to do something like this again. I still want to get Jared one weekend when we have time to do the Matrix 2 or something like that.
That'd be fun.
We'll talk about,
That'd be fun. And then there's the whole Bitcoin thing.
We got to do the Bitcoin thing too.
Right.
So, but I got to go before my wife starts yelling at me. I promised her movies
Spend time with your family, man.
Charcuterie boards.
You don't have enough time with your family. Go do that. Thank you, guys. Everybody.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. Have a great time. Watch for updates. God bless.